Barrie's Theatre by the Bay is rehearsing for their 2003 summer production of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. We go back 107 years to the winter of 1896 when the doors first opened to this building in behind me, now a dining establishment located on Collier Street in the downtown core.
I hear some noise within, dear love. Adieu. I'm not a good nurse. Sweet Montague.
The occasion? Opening night performance of Romeo and Juliet at Barrie's new Grand Opera House. The Grand Opera House was regarded as the finest and best equipped theatre in Canada. Seating 1,200 patrons, the three-story building was lit with 300 incandescent electric lights. However, a scandal rocked the Grand Opera House even before construction was completed. Fingers pointed at the town's treasurer, the wealthy Sidney James Sanford.
He decided that what Barrie needed was a Grand Opera House, and in 1895 put money towards its construction. It turned out that $63,000 of the money was actually county money that he had absconded with. But by that time, Jim Sanford was living in South America, making a lot of money in mining, and eventually repaid what he had borrowed from the county.
From theatre and musical productions to moving picture shows, the Grand Opera House thrived right up until November of 1926, when a fire destroyed the top 2 stories. Arson was suspected. Barrie claims that the people are indeed the city. Is Barrie's story more than just transportation infrastructure and heritage buildings? Well, I guess it depends how you judge one of Canada's most successful horse racing stables, the greatest female athlete in half a century, an elusive sea monster, and the naval commander who gave Barrie its name.
This program is brought to you in part by the Aurarium Group, building and leasing properties in the Barrie area since 1970, providing a variety of retail, office, and industrial space with flexible lease arrangements. The Aurarium Group, we want you to succeed.
The incredible Rogers bundles, digital cable and high-speed internet together in one package, only on Canada's most advanced digital network.
The city of Barrie has taken the motto, "The people are the city." Every day, the people of Barrie go to work or volunteer, shop, raise a family, fall ill or cure the sick, maybe put on a show. Noble achievements. For most of us, this is done with little fanfare. For others, Barrie has been the launching pad from which they have reached heights of glory. One of the earliest was Bobbie Rosenfeld, a Russian immigrant who settled in Barrie as a youth. It was the turn of the century. Fanny Rosenfeld, Bobbie to her friends and admirers, was an all-round athlete who showed promise in many sports: basketball, softball, tennis, and hockey. One observer later remarked, "The best way to summarize Bobbie's career is to say that she was not good at swimming." For all her sporting talents, it was track and field that brought Bobbie Rosenfeld to national and worldwide prominence.
She became known as one of the best track and field athletes in all of Ontario in the mid-1920s and was generating a lot of acclaim, and that actually helped her secure a spot on the 1928 Olympic team.
It was the 1928 Summer Olympics in Amsterdam that women were first allowed to compete in track and field events. Bobbie Rosenfeld was part of a group of 6 Canadian female track stars known as the Matchless Six. Rosenfeld wins a gold medal with the women's 400-meter relay team and a silver in the 100 meters in a rather controversial fashion.
Half the judges thought that she had won the race, and some of the other judges thought that the American had won the race. And in fact, when they finally sort of tabulated all their scores, the American was awarded the gold and Bobbie was awarded the silver. In effect, was what was in effect a photo finish.
Shockingly, within a year, 25-year-old Bobbie Rosenfeld's career seemed over. Hobbled by severe arthritis, Bedridden for months and then confined to crutches, eventually regaining form but forced to retire from competition in 1933 by recurring arthritis.
You could almost equate it with Bobbie Orr. Here's an athlete in her absolute prime, in her late 20s, and her career has to end because of an injury, and who knows what she could have done later in life in her athletic career.
Bobbie Rosenfeld carried on by putting her sporting knowledge to work as a track and softball coach, then as a sports columnist with the Globe and Mail. In 1950, she was voted Canada's female athlete of the half-century and followed this by being inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame. Fanny Bobbie Rosenfeld died in 1969. In 1904, just as Bobbie Rosenfeld was making her first appearance in the world, Barrie's Diamond family was establishing its name as one of the preeminent thoroughbred horse racing stables in Canada. That year, the Diamonds won their second consecutive King's Plate during the reign of King Edward VII. Today called the Queen's Plate, it is one of the world's premier horse racing events and the oldest consecutive thoroughbred horse race in North America.
There were 4 horses that won the King's Plate. The first was in 1903, and that was Thessalon. Then in 1904, Sapper was the winner. Then in 1911, Heresy was the winner. And in 1921, with the trophy behind me, was Herendacy. I
think a lot of people who maybe have moved to Barrie in the last 10 or 15 years don't understand that this was a real horse racing center for Ontario and for Canada. The Queen's Plate was actually held here in 1873. They used to have a big racetrack right downtown, and the Diamond family started up a farm, a breeding farm and training farm called Brookdale.
John Diamond trained the 1903 winner Thessalon and the 1904 winner Sapper. He also trained the 1912 winner Heresy, but died at the age of 35, not long before the race.
He was an excellent horse trainer, and it's actually surprising that more horses didn't win the King's Plate at that time.
Along with their reputation as a successful horse breeding family, the Diamonds made money in the lumber industry, were the driving force behind the construction of the Barrie Bell automobile, and it was John Diamond who founded the first Barrie Colts hockey team.
Johnny Diamond had 2 interests, horses and hockey. And that first Colts hockey team, as far as I know, was formed on the Diamonds Pond, which was right back of where now the ball planing mill is.
To have a sense of history, to have a sense of belonging. I'm proud of our past history in Barrie.
I'm looking for the monument of Sir James Robert Gowen. It shouldn't be hard to find. It's the largest monument here in Barrie Union Cemetery, and that's not without reason. Here it is. The Honourable Sir James Robert Gowen, the youngest man ever to be appointed county court judge at the age of 26 in 1842, later called to the Senate, and friend and advisor to our first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, who, by the way, married a Barrie girl. Sir James Robert Gowen was an important player in Barrie's history.
He was knighted for his services in 1905, and that was very much well received here in Simcoe County and in Barrie. And he died in 1909. Very much his passing marked the end of an era in Barrie.
So if the people are indeed the city, then there is one person who is the city. And that man is Commodore Sir Robert Barrie, veteran of the War of 1812. Commodore Robert Barrie was the officer in charge of all naval forces in Canada, given this distinction after his success during the War of 1812. He guided the building of the Rideau and Welland canals, oversaw surveys of the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River, and negotiated Canada's water boundaries with the United States. He made annual inspections of the naval depots in Upper and Lower Canada, passing through Barrie on numerous occasions while visiting the naval base at Penetanguishene. Sir Robert Barrie died in 1841. But perhaps Barrie's most legendary resident has never set foot in the city. According to some, he's right out there.
I'm told that Kevin Felt Kelly was seen by Samuel Champlain, Canada's great explorer.
Retired businessman and one of Barrie's leading ambassadors for the city, Arch Brown, is referring to Kempenfeld Kelly, a sea monster that Brown himself named. Kelly lurks in the depths of Kempenfeld Bay, but occasionally comes up for a look around. So the story goes.
It is well known that the soldiers during the War of 1812 repeatedly saw him when they came up from the city of York, which is now Toronto.
The early ice cutters on Kempenfeld Bay have caught a glimpse of Kelly. So too have visitors and residents who live along the shore of the bay. Arch Brown originally chose to have his home built on the shores of Kempenfeld Bay just so he could observe the antics of Barrie's legendary sea monster.
I think I have seen Kempenfeld Kelly, and I don't know if it's a he or a she.
It's unclear what you will see off Barrie's lakeshore. A sea monster? Some say yes. The wreck of the J.C. Morrison? Most definitely. To many, what you will find is the future focus of the city's recreational life. The magnet that will continue attracting business and residents well into the 21st century. But the path to get there is a source of great debate. Although Barrie at the turn of the century was the administrative, educational, and retail center for Simcoe County, there was a real sense that the town was being left behind. In 1871, the town of Barrie was the 33rd largest in the country. But by 1901, it had fallen to 54th with a population of 6,000.
What Barrie was not was an industrial town. Apart from the railway plant, really, they had the Barrie Tanning Company, and that was about it. In time, they realized that the golden way to the future, if you like, or prosperity, was the development of an industrial base.
Even the industrial boom in the aftermath of the First World War failed to stimulate Barrie's economy. The Barrie Carriage Company attempts to make the leap from horse-drawn to horseless carriages with the assembly of the Barrie Bell automobile.
Unfortunately, difficulties of supply and some design flaws doomed that automobile to be a failure. In fact, the Barrie Carriage Company didn't survive much past 1919.
It wasn't that long ago that some of the bigger local industries were harvesting ice from the frozen waters of Kempenfeld Bay, and an operation to process apples.
It wasn't a small place. You think when you drive by, well, how could you have a business, a thriving business? Dad shipped to Europe, he shipped to the West, and I can remember Belgium.
Margaret Buddy Wingrove is referring to her father, John Gosling, and his apple barrel and processing operation, once located at the corner of Sophia and Maple Street in Barrie. The apple operation had its beginnings in 1904, and with a capacity to produce 100 barrels a day, business was good.
And there was 2-3 big furnaces, I remember, as a little girl. They'd be red hot, and the apples would go up on the belts. And I guess they got cooked up there or sliced or something. And they were sent to Germany to make champagne for the soldiers.
But the end of the First World War spelled the end of the apple business for the Gosling family.
Oh, when the boys come back from the war, you know, it was wonderful. They had been soldiers, and they deserved it. But then my dad said that his business just went flat because they didn't want to go out and work on in the farms anymore, and hired men and one thing and another. They wanted to go to the cities, they wanted to do this. It changed everything.
Spirit unbroken, John Gosling started to do business in hides and wool. Eventually he went on to establish a successful silver fox ranch in Vesper Township.
He was well liked. There wasn't a friend that he didn't have in Barrie. It makes you have memories, you know, really. Our childhood memories are all here.
Prohibition followed Barrie into the 1920s. The first 3 months of 1926 saw 16 of 20 prisoners in the Barrie jail